We're here today with Marcia Martin, one of the original founding members of the Transformational Leadership Council. So what you're saying is that you can shift your emotions through your thoughts.
Absolutely. And not only can you train your thoughts, you can train your mind in terms of how it thinks. So consider there's two different distinctive things we're talking about here. Who you are as a thinker, the quality of your thinking, and then the thoughts that you have, the conversations that rush through your mind. Those are two different things we're talking about. The quality of who you are as a thinker, in other words, your thinkingness, actually produces the manifestation of the universe around you. The thoughts that just go by your mind are just distractions. That's not who you are as a thinker. It's just thinking or thoughts that you're having. Now, if I begin to be aware of a thought as it passes through, and then I can look at that thought or consider the thought and say to myself, is this thought congruent with the things I want to produce in my life? So if the thought says, oh, I don't look very pretty today, or the thought says, oh, I don't think I'm going to get that promotion, then if I consider it's just a thought going through, it's not me, it's not even my thinkingness, it's a thought I'm having, is it a thought that's productive? And if I see that it's not, then I can say, stop. I choose not to have that thought. Now, that takes some focus, and that's what the training is. If you're going to train your mind, you have to be disciplined. You have to focus. You have to have some commitment, take some energy. Doesn't just like, oh, okay, now my mind is trained. A lot of times as human beings, we consider that it will just happen to us. And we're just supposed to sit here like, oh, it'll happen that our mind has the right thoughts. Or it'll happen that something out there will be interesting enough to cause me to be present. Right. When in fact, it's my job and my energy and my discipline and my commitment, whether I'm present. It's my job, it's my discipline, it's my commitment, what quality of thoughts go through my mind.
Do you have any techniques or a technique that you can share about how people might begin to create a new path if they've been going down the same one and they'd like to shift?
Well, sure. The foundation of all learning is awareness. The biggest thing I can tell anybody when you ask any question about how someone learns or gets better at something is the first thing is to be committed to being more aware. And that's all you need to do, really, because your awareness will open up different choices. And when you start to realize that you are the chooser and you make the choices, they don't happen to you, then you can be more responsible about making choices that are responsible. So what do I mean by awareness? I mean that instead of having the perception that you're looking out in the world and you're seeing what's out there, pretend your eyes are in the back of your head looking through you and out. And consider that what you need to be aware of is not just everything out in the world, but your response to it, the thoughts you have about it, the sensations or emotions that you're feeling in your body, the things that trigger you, the things that plug you in, the sequence of the thoughts. For example, if I have a thought and it's negative, does that produce another thought that's negative? And does that produce another thought that's negative? Usually that's the case, and we don't even be aware of the fact that they are actually triggered by each other. And if we stopped one, we wouldn't get down that path. So the awareness itself is what you need to train yourself in. To be aware, to be a witness.
And so when you have brighter thoughts, you then attract a brighter future.
Well, now that brings up the law of attraction. So a lot of people don't really understand the law of attraction, so I'm glad that you pointed this out. Because the law of attraction has to do with people thinking, number one, well, if I think about good things will happen to me. And some people even think, if I think about exactly this good thing, this specific good thing will happen. So if I think about a handsome husband, he'll come walking my way. And that's not how it works. What you're saying is closer to what works, is if you're having thoughts, those thoughts will produce feelings. The feeling itself has the frequency. The higher the frequency, the more productive things will come to you, or positive, because higher frequencies will bring to you higher frequencies. Lower frequencies will bring to you lower frequencies. Not like the thought itself comes towards you. But if you're feeling joyful, then what will happen is the frequency of joy will go out into the universe. Now, how does it return to you? It returns to you in a lot of different forms. The husband doesn't float into the living room. What comes towards you are resources, ideas, situations, people, relationships, thoughts, and those open up and keep expanding, and maybe you meet another person through a person, or you have an idea to go to a place, and at that place you meet a person. So it's the frequency that you want to stay in. So you actually have an internal guidance system, which is a term that was first thought of by Zenda Brooke, who's a great friend of ours in the Transformational Leadership Council. Your internal guidance system, just like you have a heart and you have a lung, and there's a piece or a part. We kind of say, gee, I get a sinking feeling in my stomach. That's really where your internal guidance system is. And when you're feeling badly, whatever emotion you consider bad, if it's anger or upset, that is your internal guidance system telling you there's a thought you're having that's unproductive. So anytime you feel bad, rather than keeping going down that pathway, you want to say to yourself, wow, I'm feeling this. What's causing me to feel this way? What was my conversation that I just had? Or what was the interaction I just had? Something about that and how I'm interpreting it caused me to feel low, bad, whatever we want to call it, negative. That's myself telling me I'm on the wrong track in my thinking. There must be something else I could think here, a different way of thinking that would cause me to feel better. When you feel better, then you have a joyous or a loving or a peaceful. Those are all higher evolved, they're higher frequency emotions. Then that frequency goes out, and then you have the law of attraction in motion. So it's all connected.
When people think about attracting what they want and them becoming specific about it, can they be too specific? And then when they get that specific, can it create obstacles or limit the greater possibility that might be coming their way?
Okay, so here's the thing about language and about specificity. First of all, there is an ether that goes through all things, that permeates all things. It's like the DNA of all things, which is the creative matter. It's where all things are sourced from. It permeates everything, from rocks to trees to human beings to animals to stars. The same matter, the same ether, the same light, the same energy is at the beginning of all life forms. The nature of creativity is that in that matter, the law says, if you hold a thought and focus that thought in that matter, which is everywhere, that will absolutely become a thing. You're a human being. You can hold a thought, so you can create. If you can focus and hold a thought, that matter is everywhere. All of your thoughts eventually will become things, under certain conditions. So there's some conditions. One of those conditions is being specific. Because there's a couple of reasons why that is. One is, first of all, when you're specific and you get into the detail, you feel more. You know, if I start talking to you and I say, man, I have a great partner, okay. But if I say, oh my God, I have a stud. He's amazing. He's got these beautiful, bright blue eyes like Paul Newman had. And he's 6 foot whatever, and he's strong, and he's handsome, and he's tender. The more specific I get, don't you notice that you feel more about the thing that I am discussing? So what happens is it's the specificity that triggers the emotion and the feeling that allows the frequency to be experienced that is sent out that causes whatever it is to come back to you in the form of a resource, a relationship, a friend, an idea, a situation that eventually will lead to the thing that you were focusing or thinking about.
Right.
So this gets us into another thing about specifics, which is language. So it's interesting. You know, I say this 100 times in my seminars, and when people really get it, it changes their lives. I ask them, what's a future? Because people want to create a future. A future exists as a possibility. That's how it exists. It exists now. That's when it exists. Where does it exist? In other words, how does it emerge? How does it show up? Because if you don't know that, you can't access it. And if you can't access it, you can't really create it. And where it always, 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 always exists is in language. A lot of people say, oh, it exists in my mind. No, you know what? If you have a surgeon and he operates on your mind and he opens it up, he's not going to find your future. He's going to find blood and brain matter and all sorts of things, but your future ain't in there. So where it actually shows up when it comes into existence is in language. Now we're getting to specificity, because if I say to you, okay, well, that's a future. We know how, when, and where it exists. What about a past? Do you think your past is behind you? And if you back up really fast, you'll back into it? Well, then people kind of get it. You know, a possibility, all a possibility is a creation. A past is a memory, but all a memory is a recreation. It's something you've created before that you're recreating. We call that our past. When does a past exist? Now, that's the only time that there is. We are in this time zone. Where does it exist? Again, in language. In other words, our past emerges in our words as we speak them. It's not back there. Now, this is interesting. When you think about how you speak your future and how you speak your past, if I say to you, tell me about a relationship that didn't work for you in the past, you will be able to describe it ad nauseum. You will be able to describe the number of hairs, the number of freckles, the number of pimples, what he did, what he didn't do, what you wanted him to do, what his mother-in-law said, where you were standing, what color, etc., etc. But if I ask a person, well, describe the possibility of a relationship that you choose to have, what you want to create in the future, you know what they say? Well, I'd like somebody to be sensitive. I'm like, anything more? Well, I want it to work. I'd like him to be a nice man. Because we are unwilling to speak our future as if we might be wrong about it, when the fact is the only place it exists is in our language. And one of the conditions of creating in this universe is to be specific. So one of the things I have to do if I want people to create a future is get them to describe it with adjectives, with texture, you know, as specifically as they can. And also at the same time to realize, hey, it's just one possibility. Okay, let's throw that one out. Let's choose another one. Once they get rolling with speaking the future, and they get specific about it, then that brings them into their feelings, and then the energies go out. Then what happens is what comes back is not that specific thing. And that's why I'm saying, doesn't matter, you're not creating any obstacles by getting so specific, because if you had that specificity, then what if you get something else? Because what comes back to you is situations, relationships, resources, ideas, as you keep creating.